Hello, YouTube. You are behind the scenes of my podcast. I'm here with Dr. Agus, and we are talking about how to live forever. Best-selling, New York Times best-selling book, The Lucky Years, and Professor, you have, would you say it's a specialty in personalized medicine? Is that kind of what you're...
I do personalized medicine, we do cancer, and our books are about wellness in general.
Wellness, yeah. We'll try to get this as close. All right, so we're now live, and now we're going to do Facebook.
What is that?
What's up, Facebook? Can you live forever? Is the medicine, is the science there? I'm here with best-selling author, Dr. DavidAgus, and we are talking about this subject of living forever, personalized medicine. We'll get into, he's got lots of interesting, controversial views on ketogenic diet and paleo, and he is a professor, as I said, best-selling author, an expert in cancer, personalized medicine. He's done talks with Joe Biden, the vice president, and so this is going to be really interesting. All right, last one, and then we'll do the official launch here. There we go. All right, Zach, I'm going to slate. Instagram Live. You're behind the scenes of my podcast. We are talking about can you live forever? The newest science, the most cutting edge stuff in medicine. I'm here with Dr. DavidAgus, best-selling author. We're going to be talking about his book, The Lucky Years. We're on the top live in the world for Instagram already, so this will grow. This will be interesting. We're going to talk about a lot of controversial stuff. So tell me when we're ready to officially go live on the podcast, and we will jump right into it. How are we looking, Zach?
I'm not getting any levels there.
Okay, so one thing that I'm going to ask you is, in terms of the speed of change, because when you look at technology, there's an actual mathematical formula, Moore's law, which says, you know, the first computer would be this powerful. And this exponential growth would come to a place where computers, if you talk to guys like Elon Musk, computers might become more intelligent than people. They call that the point of singularity. Is medicine on the same curve, in your opinion?
I mean, in fact, DNA sequencing way quicker than Moore's law. And so all of a sudden, there's an inflection point, what Andy Grove called it, where the curve of progress versus time, the slope changes. So we're going like this, and all of a sudden we're like this. We're literally, every month there's a breakthrough. That's why we call the new book The Lucky Years, because I really believe this is different.
Yeah, I think so. You got us slated? I'll do it.
Yeah, we're slated.
Okay, I'm going to do the formal introduction.
I can't hear it, but that's me.
You cannot?
No.
Someone said, this is my field. Someone, are we the masters of our own disease? Put in some questions, and I'll try to touch on these as we go. Technology will one day merge with the biolog. That's interesting. Someone said that's incredible.
I can hear now.
Okay, I'm going to do the introduction. We ready to go, Adrian?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome today to the Tai Lopez podcast radio program. I've got a very special guest, Dr. DavidAgus. We're talking about, can you live forever? Is the science there? We're talking about the most cutting edge breakthroughs. Dr. Agus is a pioneer in the field of personalized medicine and cancer research. He's a professor. We're talking about his book, The Lucky Years, New York Times best-selling book. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's my privilege.
He was on with Joe Biden. He's been doing presidential talks, so I'm very honored that you're here with us. And we're doing this pre-show and live. If you had to say the three most exciting medical breakthroughs that are going to affect the average person listening in the next 2 years, what would they be? In anything related to our health.
All right, there's one, and it's a molecule that was Molecule of the Year last year, which I know you paid attention to.
Yes.
And you were just waiting for it to be unveiled. It's called CRISPR. And so CRISPR is an enzyme that allows you to change one of the 3 billion letters of the DNA code. So I can go into an embryo. It was just done last month. They changed an embryo that had a genetic defect in the heart, and they were able to fix it.
Wow.
Huh.
You're going
Was
to
that
see.
in China or something?
It
I
wasn't
saw
originally in China, but it was done in Arizona last month.
It's also in your book.
It's in our book. And then tomorrow, you're going to see the front page of all the papers is a new FDA-approved therapy where they took the immune cells out of a child
Yeah.
and they changed the cells to go back and attack their own cancer.
Yeah.
And it just got FDA approved. So the notion that I could change these cells and let them attack your own cancer. So changing a DNA is one.
Yeah.
The second is what we call the microbiome. You have
Yes.
tenfold more bacteria in you than human cells in you. So these bacteria, they control what you absorb, how you absorb it. They control many aspects about you. So right now, if I take bacteria from a fat mouse and put it into a skinny mouse, they gain weight. And the converse is true. So we're going to start to change diabetes, obesity by changing the bacteria in our GI tract. It really is an amazing finding that starts to change everything. And the last one is, well, we start the book as in a story. And the story is of a woman named Wanda Ruth Lunsford, who Wanda published her first paper in the 1950s, where she took an old rat and a young rat and she tied their skin together.
Yes.
So after
Young blood.
3 weeks later, she looked at that old rat and the gray hairs had turned brown. The
Yeah.
heart beat stronger. The new neurons growing in the brain. She claimed she reversed aging. Well, they kicked her out of science. They thought she was crazy. Dracula, Frankenstein. And then what happened is, last year, 3 separate labs at Harvard, at Stanford, and at University of California, San Francisco repeated Wanda's experiment, and it worked.
Yeah.
And what they showed is at age 25, and you and I, our stem cells go to sleep.
Yes.
And with proteins now that are present in young individuals, you could turn those stem cells back on. So science now is moving to identify those proteins and give those proteins to elderly who have fractured their hip in a clinical trial to try to make them heal quicker. People with Alzheimer's, that is degenerative nervous systems in the brain, to see if we can reverse some of those aspects. We're doing it in cancer. You know, cancer in kids is 90% curable. Once you turn 25,
Right.
that same cancer is incurable.
Is that because of the the difference in the stem cells?
Well, it's because, cancer is a disease of the body. It's a verb. You're cancering. It's not something the body gets. It's something the body does. And so if I can change the body, maybe cancer won't happen. You know, an amazing study came out last year where they looked at the eyelid. It's the only part of your body that you don't put sunscreen on. And in 100 straight people, they all had DNA changes of cancer, yet none of them had cancer. Because in order to get cancer, you need a DNA change, but you need an environment that's receptive.
Right.
So the challenge is not just targeting the cancer, but changing the body so cancer doesn't want to happen.
So is the biome, is that things, when I think of biome as a layman, I think of probiotics and things like that. Is that what you mean by the biome?
Yeah, so probiotics are some of the bacteria in our GI tract, but you have 20,000 different bacteria in you. So an amazing clinical trial came out last year. It was the coolest. They took 20-year-olds and they gave them any of the FDA-approved artificial sweeteners. So all those aspartames and all that stuff, anything in Diet Coke and Diet Pepsi, they did that. After 2 weeks, every single one of the 20-year-olds had markers of diabetes or prediabetes.
Yeah.
And they said, oh my gosh, that's interesting. Then they gave them antibiotics followed by the artificial sweeteners. No diabetes at all.
Yeah.
So what that artificial sweeteners did is they changed the bacteria in your GI tract to push your system to diabetes. Which is why all the trials to use those artificial sweeteners to lose weight didn't work. And the doctors had the gall to say, well, fat people sneak food. That's why the trials didn't work. No, they got the science wrong.
Yeah. Now let's go back. Okay, so some of you watch TV, you see there's this, Silicon Valley TV show, and there was an episode where a wealthy billionaire goes in there and he gets somebody's blood, young person's blood, and he puts it, and it's kind of like this Dracula event. I think they call it parabiosis or something like this. I have a friend and business partner, and this guy has tried he's very wealthy, he's middle-aged, and I guess he's decided he wants to live forever. So he's gone and done ozone therapy. He's been to Malaysia. He's been to Europe. He's done, PRP kind of stem cell stuff. But he did this parabiosis, and he said it's the greatest thing he's ever done. He did
it once?
He did it once, and now he's done it twice.
So 1 time or 2 times has 0 effect on the body.
Okay.
You need to do it a minimum of 6-8 months.
So you think it was a placebo effect?
100%.
I'm going to put this a teeny bit closer to you. There.
100% a placebo effect.
Huh.
We gave him protein, and he feels better because he got protein, but it did not affect his aging or his stem cells at all, unfortunately.
So basically, just so you know, you take blood plasma, like somebody who donated blood between what 16 and 25, I think it is.
You take younger blood plasma, and
Yeah.
we don't need the whole plasma. All we need is about 4 or 5 proteins now that
Yes.
are being identified that can turn on these stem cells. Right? There are companies now that are using blood plasma from young people to make money. So
Yeah.
anything that just makes money without science behind it, I'm kind of not behind.
Yeah.
And I want to push toward the data. But there's no question that all of us, we're in these lucky years, we're going to benefit because we're going to be able to turn on those stem cells rather soon to affect aging.
And you said 6 or 7 of these transfusions.
Well, you're
is
going to
what
need
the
them
sign-
for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You start to see them at 6 or 7. So at about 4 or 5 months of doing it, every 2 weeks,
Uh-huh.
you can start to see this.
Huh.
The problem is that
It's very
you can't
intrusive
get
for
that.
somebody
It's
to
very
do.
intrusive. It's very hard to do. But when we have these proteins, it's going to be just like taking a baby aspirin a day, which, by the way, has enormous health benefits.
Yes.
We're going to do the same thing by taking things that turn on our stem cells.
Yeah.
We don't know the harm, though, is the problem, right?
Right.
Mice live a couple of years. Maybe by turning on our stem cells, we're going to have more cancer.
Cancer,
We're going to
right.
have more heart disease. We don't know the negatives yet. We know the potential positives from these animal experiments. So in people with disease, the Alzheimer's, the cancers, it makes sense to do that. But
Yeah.
in a normal individual who's your friend is 50, I wouldn't do it yet.
Now, McKenna's here. For those of you watching, we have Maya, my cousin. We have McKenna. We have Zach. You had a question, and your question was about a diet. Can you ask that question?
Yes, the ketogenic diet.
Oh.
I'm a personal trainer, and diet is about 80% of your results. And I've done quite a bit of digging, and for myself, and for most women in particular, even my mom helped her lose weight, the ketogenic diet worked really well. Now that's a high fat, moderate protein, very low carb, and almost no sugar diet. And doctor over here tells me that it increases cortisol, which is your stress hormone.
Yeah. What's your opinion on the ketogenic diet?
Wait,
What
yeah.
I
Does
say
anyone
is
know
very
about that?
simple. It's, what's your metric? If you just want to lose weight today, it's probably a very efficient way to do it. But if you care about how long and how well you live,
Yes.
it's probably not a safe thing to do.
Yes.
And so you don't want to stress your body. So all these
No.
people are talking about these intermittent fasting diets, the ketogenic diet. Any diet with a name automatically tells you it's probably not the best thing to do. Somebody's selling something or pushing something. I mean, that's clear. The data show in every randomized trial, the most healthy diet, because our goal is to play with our grandkids, to live
Yes.
long and well.
Yes.
Yeah.
The best
Absolutely.
diet by far is the Mediterranean diet.
Mediterranean.
So remember, it's also not just what you eat, it's when you eat.
Yes.
So people who graze, that is snack, have a dramatically higher rate of diabetes. They don't think as well, and they don't exercise.
So you're saying
as
it's
well.
better
Oh, yeah.
to eat distinct meals versus eating all day?
I don't know what the word distinct means, but
I mean,
eat your
my-
meals regular.
Yeah, you eat
Scheduled.
breakfast,
Yeah.
lunch, dinner.
No question about it. We weren't made to graze.
No.
Kitchen cabinet never happened until 100 years ago. So through evolution, which is a million years, we made the kill in the wild. We ate it as a family, and we had the leftovers in the morning, so 2-3 meals a day. So the key is eat your meals the same time. Baseball players, when they shift a time zone in their meals, they lose batting points, percentage-wise.
Yeah.
And so the key really is that exactness. Every morning, have your breakfast around 7 or whatever it is. Your lunch the same time and your dinner the same time. Your body will do better. If one day you have a snack in between, you grab an apple, it throws off your insulin, your cortisol for 2-3 days.
Yeah.
So metabolism goes down, you gain weight, you don't think as well or exercise as well.
What about the question of protein? Every bodybuilder you talk to, I was over at Arnold Schwarzenegger's house, and he kind of go by 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. A lot of people say that's too much. Do you think the traditional USDA recommendations are on the right track? Because USDA has recommended hydrogenated oils, and they've had Twinkies on the in the 70s.
Oh my
in
gosh.
what do you?
Again, it's Mediterranean diet, right?
Okay.
You want protein and fat at every meal with some carbohydrates. Simple. That's
What
it.
is the Mediterranean?
Eat real food.
What's the breakdown? Do you know roughly? Is it a 30-30-30 kind of breakdown?
Your body's pretty good at deciding what to absorb.
Okay.
And so, what do I eat? Breakfast, I alternate between heart-healthy eggs, between, yogurt one day, hard cheeses the next day. Lunch, I have a salad with protein on it. Dinner, I have a protein, predominantly fish and chicken. Once a week, I have grass-fed beef. And, lots of vegetables with it, olive oil, all the good oils. Have a glass of wine at night, and that's a healthy diet.
What about coconut oil? This has been in the news because coconut oil, it seems like it vacillates between coconut oil is the greatest thing for you, and then this new study comes out and it's so bad for you.
There's no study showing a real benefit to coconut oil. Coconut water is a whole different thing.
Okay.
In World War II, we didn't have blood for transfusions. We actually went right from the coconut to the vein.
Huh.
Because coconut water has colloid and electrolytes. It's very similar to human plasma. When you drink a glass of water, it distributes throughout your whole body. When you drink coconut water, it stays inside the blood vessels. So one glass of coconut water is like 2 or 3 bottles of regular water.
But let me bring this up. So Chris Paul is a friend of mine. He plays pro basketball now for the Houston Rockets. And all those guys, not just Chris Paul, they swear by these tests that test for food allergies. So there's one called Cyrex that I've done, the ELISA test and things like that. Have you, and it makes sense to me that people are different. Now, I did a Cyrex test for my own blood, and the most fascinating thing is every single thing that I don't like, I'm slightly allergic to. So, for example, steamed tomatoes.
It's bullshit.
So you think it's BS?
It's not that I think it is, that's what the data show.
Okay.
So Hippocrates, 2,400 years ago, used to keep a diary. He'd eat something and see how he felt. If he didn't feel good, he didn't eat it anymore. Listen to your body. These tests don't make any sense. And there's somebody trying to make a buck off you, but there really is no data behind them.
Interesting.
If you eat milk and you don't feel good, don't have milk.
Yeah.
If you eat, whatever it is, just listen to yourself. That is the best way to do it. Unfortunately, we don't have the technology now to find allergies in the blood very well.
Yeah, true.
But the body, it's tricky because modern food tricks you. If it's any kind of process, for example, coconut water. Some coconut waters have added sugar.
But the key is eat real food. Don't eat the processed things.
Okay.
Don't take the supplements. Don't take the vitamins. Don't take the pills. Eat real food.
Isn't that
Dr.
an
Agus
amazing
doesn't
industry?
take vitamins. Right?
I'd like to, if I could, real quick. I listen to my body, so I'm really interested. And I want to get back.
Sorry.
Uh-oh,
Actually, I don't think my mic is working,
No,
so
it's
I'll
on.
use this one real quick. I want to get back to what you said about wine. You
Yes.
said you do wine every night, and I really
Oh,
like.
I thought you were saying that I whine.
No. No, I just wanted to bring it back
Yes.
to. I listen to my body. My body says have wine a lot, so I didn't know how much wine you recommend.
So
consuming.
alcohol is a depressant, right? When you drink a bunch of alcohol, you fall asleep. Then 3-4 hours later, you wake up again because you get a rebound surge in adrenaline. Alcohol has health benefits. There are clearly cardiovascular benefits. In women, it slightly increases the risk of breast cancer. You don't want to drink too much. It's moderation. So if alcohol is affecting your sleep, you're drinking too much. So I know if I have more than 2 glasses of wine, it affects my sleep. So I try to stop at 1.5 glasses.
Can you do that, Zach?
I mean, that's another podcast that deals with self-control.
He didn't say 1 gallon. He doesn't stop at 1 gallon. Now, one of the things, I think the most confusing thing for people watching and for myself is that every piece of science, when you read a scientific report, it seems like within 6 months, the opposite comes out. So I've seen things that say wine are amazing for you, and I've seen other reports that say the benefits don't outweigh the negatives. Do you think that part of the answer could be wine's better for some people and should be avoided by others? Same with coffee.
If you have a family history of breast cancer,
Oh.
you have wine, you're going to increase your risk of breast cancer. That's real. And so everything is contextual.
Right.
And you're right, the media take things out of context all the time. A study came out 6 months ago, and the headline was, meat causes cancer. So what the data in the study show is that processed meats every day
Yes.
for 20 years raise the rate of colon cancer from 4% to 5%.
Wow, that's
So-
it?
So it's real, right? Meat does cause cancer. But first of all, if you have processed meat every day for 20 years, a hot dog a day for 20 years,
Yeah.
you have a psychological problem. That's totally different. But to the average
Or you live in
person,
Arkansas.
this headline was irrelevant. Well, there's nothing wrong with Arkansas in particular. But this headline was irrelevant to the average person. It was really putting things in context that's key. But the other point you made, I think, is critical, is that 80% of scientific studies after 10 years are disproven.
Yes.
So it matters where the study is, who did the study, what journal it's in, and
Right.
that is critical. So if you read a study on the internet, because you're going to find everything on the internet, and then you don't see it the next day in the New York Times or Time Magazine or on CBS, I do the CBS Morning Show, we're not
Yeah.
talking about it, it probably isn't that accurate or that important.
So if it's Harvard and it was done on 10,000 people, it's probably a lot better than if it's, a food company that commissioned a study to back up.
There are lots of medical journals where you pay a fee and
Yeah.
they publish your paper.
Ooh,
Yeah.
fun.
So nobody looks at it and it just gets, well, I have a published paper. Yeah, but it's in a journal you never heard of.
Yeah.
If it's not New England Journal of Medicine or a journal title you've heard of, it's probably not that significant.
Now, why do you say that supplements are worthless? All of them. I know some would obviously be.
It's not me saying that, it's the data saying
But
that.
is there no data that shows people benefiting from supplements?
There is yet to be a study in the history of man or womankind showing a vitamin or a supplement having a benefit to a normal individual, ever.
But what about if somebody's sick?
Do any of your friends have scurvy or rickets or
Right,
beriberi?
right, yeah.
So if somebody is sick, in general, there are medicines that have been shown in randomized trials
Mhm.
to have benefit. I don't know right now of a supplement that works in those situations or a vitamin. I wish there will be. I'd be the first to say do it if there's data behind it.
So can I play devil's advocate? So
Yes.
I one of my first businesses was in agriculture and the food business. In the United States, every animal that's raised that we eat, whether it's dairy or beef, the farmers supplement. Now, there's no placebo effect on animals. The USDA recommends it, whether it's a mineral mix for every single cow that we're eating. Is the USDA and all their science, because farmers are the cheapest people in the world, are they all misguided? They should just shut off all.
They're supplementing animals because they want them to mature quickly so they can take them to market quickly. They don't have to wait 5 years before they
No,
sell.
not just not growth acceleration. I'm literally talking about
Right,
like
they're-
multivitamins.
Well, they're putting them in a confined area and using food that's processed and
Right.
dried, and they're not going to. Normally, an animal has a taste. They need salt. They go and they find a rock that has salt on it and they lick
Right.
it. In the setting of a caged animal, they don't have that opportunity, so you have to supplement them. So it's a little bit different. And these are inbred. We're not inbred. We have the ability of listening to our body and taking what we want. And in general, we have a pretty well-rounded diet in our country where we're getting almost all of the nutrients we need. Again, I challenge you to find a friend of yours that has rickets or beriberi, or to show me a study in a randomized way that showed a benefit. And they're all done.
Right.
There was a study, showing that if you give a woman over 70 increased vitamin D to increase her level, you increase the rate of bone fractures, you don't decrease it.
Wow.
If you give a man vitamin E to prevent cancer, you increase the rate of prostate cancer pretty dramatically, almost 16% in the study.
What
That was
about-
a $300 million study.
What about folic acid for women who are pregnant? This is a common.
So you are right in that there is, there's a condition called pregnancy. We call that a condition in our country. It's a pre-existing condition. In that setting, taking prenatal vitamins makes all the sense in the world. And taking high-dose folic acid can actually prevent neural tube defects. We know in adults, for example, that folic acid supplementation doesn't help. And there was a recent study actually showing significant harm from taking folic acid supplementation if you're not pregnant.
So for the average person, you're recommending the oldest piece of advice: make your food your medicine.
Yeah, the
supplement.
data are saying that.
Right.
And people get mad at me because they get pissed. He's taking away something I've been doing for 20 years. How dare you say that? I took vitamin C. I didn't get my cold. All the randomized studies have never shown a benefit. So, listen, I'm not saying anybody's doing anything wrong. I'm just saying I go by the data.
Yeah.
Because in general, we call a complex system. When you take a high dose of one thing, you change a lot of other things in the body, and that's what we're seeing.
Good question. We have very common one. Austin Rumberg on Facebook Live asks, "What about cannabis and marijuana? What's your opinion?"
So one day I go to my office here around the corner from where you are, and I get there and there are people protesting in front of my office. I go, oh my gosh, what the hell's going on? And they were protesting because that morning on Howard Stern, Neil Young went on and said, Howard said, do you use marijuana? He goes, well, Agus got me to stop doing it, and he told me the negatives. And Howard said, he got me to stop too. And so all of a sudden people were
Oh
protesting.
my goodness.
Wow.
So I'm not against marijuana. What I am against is the way we're doing marijuana today.
Okay.
Right? We don't know, and we don't have a way of grading how much of effect of THC and other things are in marijuana. We don't have a way of looking for the chemicals in general so that we're not inhaling into our lungs some potentially toxic chemicals. We don't have a way of actually measuring how much you've had to see if it's safe for you to drive or not. And I think most importantly, it's because our government has rated it a very high level of narcotic,
Right.
so that me as a doctor can't study it.
Right.
And so I really think it is crazy that we're putting it at the highest level.
Right.
So that if I wanted to do a study, I'd have to buy this big safe and get a guard. We can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
So they need to change the grading of marijuana to make it lower, so we can do the real studies and be able to do it right.
Yeah.
You know how much wine, and because there's a particular amount of alcohol in most wines, you know how much you can drink.
Yeah.
You don't know the potency of these marijuanas. What we also know is that if a young child uses it, it affects their ability later in life with psychiatric disorders. So adults over the age of 25, when the brain has stopped developing, I certainly think it's a reasonable thing to do if you want to do it and understand it. At the same time, I really wish we had quality controls and we were doing it better and we knew the true effect. So I'm not against it, I'm just against the way we're doing it today.
One thing I've said, would you agree with this statement? It makes no sense, because I don't really smoke weed, so I'm not an advocate either way. Alcohol is worse than marijuana. I read that 70 to 90% of all murders are when people have been drinking. Domestic violence, DUIs. Would you say that it's true that it makes no sense in the United States that alcohol is basically legal and it's even somewhat accepted that people under 21 are drinking, even though it's illegal? I mean, people know in colleges people are drinking at 18. Whereas marijuana is a huge deal in some states, not so much in California. Do you think do you think that makes sense?
No, I mean, I think you're totally right that, yes, you can abuse alcohol, you can abuse marijuana, lots of things can be abused, and yet we put marijuana in this pedestal compared to everything else. I think we need to do real science. I think if you go driving and they test your alcohol level, we know if you're above a certain level, you are impaired in driving.
Yeah.
That's clear. I mean, the data are real, and we've seen lots of accidents because of it. We need to do the same with marijuana and every other drug so we can actually do it right, do it responsibly. When you do it at home and you're not going out, that's one thing. When you do it, in public or you're driving, with very high levels, that's probably not the safest thing in the world.
Yeah.
But you're right, is that our policies on alcohol and marijuana aren't congruous.
So let's talk about Steve Jobs and psychedelics.
All
Yes.
What do you think of, there's people, McKenna was talking to me about ayahuasca, which is a Colombian, a rainforest type compound comes from a root of a plant. You had Steve Jobs told Bill Gates that Bill Gates would have been a lot more creative had he done LSD.
Yeah.
What do you think of psychedelics? And let's talk about Steve Jobs, because you have some interesting takes on the Steve Jobs side.
I care for Steve. I was one of the doctors. I mean, it certainly was a privilege. I think we're learning about some of these. There's been data out recently that MDMA, ecstasy,
Yep.
is one of the most potent drugs to treat traumatic stress syndromes.
Huh.
And so the data are dramatic. I mean, these are people who have failed everything and have had post-traumatic stress for years. A couple of doses have changed their life.
Really?
And so all of a sudden, it may be FDA approved to treat post-traumatic syndrome.
Or you can just go to a rave.
Right.
You can go to a
That's true. And who knows what you're going to get.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Does it releases more serotonin or dopamine or something?
We have these explanations that we in science come up and make serotonin go up and the receptors for that. In reality, the brain is a very complex system. And so we can't give true molecular explanations even though we try.
Okay.
And so a lot of these are really experiences. Some people go on an antidepressant and do fantastically, others don't.
Right.
It's very hard to personalize that. Steve was remarkable. When I knew him, it was post his drug years, so I never saw that aspect of him. But you're right, he certainly talked about it, and he certainly about how it changed his life. And but I think to each his own. Everybody is different.
One of my business partners he's got his PhD in molecular neuroscience, and he says the problem is with those drugs is we don't know a lot. The brain is still the wild west frontier. We don't understand it. So he said if you do too much of these psychedelics, he doesn't recommend it just because of the unknown factor.
Yeah, I mean,
You do have to be very careful, but psilocybin is a little bit different than MDMA, but it has very similar effects, and that changed a lot for me when I was about 15, 16, in similar therapeutic ways.
and what did it do to you?
It helped heal me from PTSD and depression.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah, I did a lot of research and really did it on my own, but I'm very glad. It's a good decision.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, I know you got to go in a couple minutes, but this
Yeah.
is fascinating. Couple more quick questions. I'm being selfish.
17 milligrams twice a day.
Of LSD. going back to, you were talking about, before the show started, you were talking about how, yes, ketogenic diet will make you lose weight, but there's downsides. You brought up HGH. So it was cool. Once a year I go to Arnold Schwarzenegger has a charity at his house. And this year, Sylvester Stallone showed up, and I have to say, he's almost 70 years old, and he looks amazing. Now, he might have had plastic surgery a little bit, but I mean, he has the body. If you go look in terms of six pack and this, and he is the biggest believer in HGH. You said the science shows he's risking 18 years of his life by taking HGH.
So certainly, if I gave a 70-year-old comes in and I gave him or her a shot of growth hormone, their friends are going to say, "You look better. You lost 10 years. You're working out." It works. I mean, it certainly makes you look better. The problem is, it takes over a decade off your life. So your muscles get bigger, your heart gets bigger too, and you get cardiac arrhythmias. The muscles around your lung get bigger, and you can't push out bacteria, so you can get increased pneumonias. So there's no way to kind of synthesize things and be a reductionist. I'm going to take this and be better. You have to look at the data. So there were randomized data in elderly individuals that again showed this, and because of that, it wasn't FDA approved for this, and it's not on the market. It's only on the market for people of short stature.
Yeah. So somebody has to basically somebody has to say this: I'm willing to look great and die younger.
And again, I'm not against that. It's their value system. It's a value system-based decision.
Right.
Do I want to play with my grandkids or do I want to look good today? And there's no right answer to that. It's the right answer for you.
Or just take it when you're 80. And then.
Yeah, but there was a famous bodybuilder that just died a few days ago, Rich Piana, I think was his name, and the guy took steroids. I think he admitted it. Steroids kind of the same thing. You get muscles, you look better, but your body, your heart and various organs just can't handle it.
Right, and there are obviously a lot of, we hear about, athletes who died at a very young age, many because of these steroids, many because of trauma to the brain or other things. And so, yes, we always give the one example, well, he lived to a long age and he looked great. There are clear exceptions to these.
Yeah.
But when you look at the collective data, there's harm.
When I moved to North Carolina when I was 13, and we lived on a little farm in Clayton, North Carolina, and next door neighbor was an old woman named Mrs. Creech. She was 92 years old. She had a little goat farm, and we'd go over there on Sundays to check on her. And I remember her telling me, she was very healthy. She goes, "Tai, I smoke every day. I haven't eaten a vegetable in 40 years." And she ate Twinkies and donuts. So there's always those people.
Yeah.
Do you think there'll be, kind of in closing, as we talk about living
Well, the
for...
Twinkie, the preservatives in the Twinkie preserved
Preserved
her. She was fine.
for mild eye. No, but do you think in the future one of the ways we'll be able to live longer or potentially, quote unquote, forever, is going and looking and sequencing a Mrs. Creech and going, what the heck is going on? Can we put this into everybody?
No question about it. I think looking at extremes is going to be very important.
Yeah.
The outliers.
The
as we call
outliers,
them.
yeah.
The other is, you're going to see very soon in the next year watches come out where they can measure things like insulin and cortisol through the skin.
Yes.
So you're going to start to see how an individual food affects you.
Yes.
How going to sleep early or late affects you. And so all of a sudden you're going to personalize what you do based on real data. Not based on the hocus pocus, some of these tests out there, but based on real data. And to me, that's going to be powerful.
So last question to close out. Sleep. That was I think this is one of the most common questions that I've seen. Is there such a thing as somebody who can be a night owl? What's that book that came out?
The Power of When?
There's a guy, he says there's different types of people. That some people, on an evolutionary kind of variability, some people fit in the slot of night owls. But there's other people who say, no, we have the circadian rhythm and the sunlight. Yeah. What's your take on sleep? Is it variable, or is there some common rules we should all follow?
So the first is, there was an experiment done on kids, and 600 kids, they said to the parents, have them go to bed whenever they want, wake them up, here's a stopwatch, wake them up at 9 hours later.
Okay.
The other 600, they said go to bed the same time every night and wake up in 9 hours. So same amount of sleep, one whenever they wanted and one the same. 21% improvement in cognitive function when you go to bed the same time and get up the same time. The next is...
So you're just saying everyone, let's say, went to bed at 9 and woke up at 6.
Exactly. And so that was a benefit there. The second is, your body does strive for that regularity. So if you go to bed every night at 2 a.m. and you get up at 8 a.m. and you get 6 hours, your body is going to get a certain percentage of REM sleep. Mm-hmm. That person who goes to bed at 9 o'clock and gets up at 8 o'clock, they're going to get a much lower percentage of REM sleep. Your body regulates it once you get into that normal schedule. So there certainly are some people who could do relatively low amount of sleep. Their percentage REM is going to be a lot higher than someone who gets longer sleep.
Right.
But the key is that regularity. As much as possible, try to go to bed at the same time and get up at the same time. And you're going to function better, you're going to do better, and your health is going to be better.
But the light affects us because believe
Yes.
it or not, I lived with the Amish for 2.5 years, no electricity when I was younger. And you fall asleep. There is no night owls at the Amish. There's no blue light, there's no phones. So we were going back to this earlier topic, and you were talking about how farm animals are kind of need supplements because they're in this environment that's artificial, but we kind of are in that artificial
No, you're right.
environment.
So I wear those, yellow glasses,
Blue
gamer
blockers,
glasses
yep.
at night when I need to watch TV before I go to bed. I like to, I enjoy it. I like to look at some emails. So I use them starting a couple hours before I go to bed.
Yes.
And it's made a big impact on my sleep.
Yeah.
The second is that I sleep with the curtains open. I want to wake up to sunlight.
Okay.
Do you go to bed at 8 o'clock at night?
Tomorrow morning I do the morning show, and I'm live on air at 4:15 a.m. on CBS.
Ooh.
So it's live in New York. So
Yeah.
I'm up at 2:30, and I got to be in the studio, and so I don't practice always what I preach.
Right.
But I try to go to bed, earlier, and I get up earlier most days. To me, the morning is the best time there is. Right? It's great to work there. Nobody bothers you. Me and the dog sit. I get to write and do things.
Yeah.
That's how Tai feels, but he goes to bed at 4 a.m. instead.
Not always 4. All right, so Dr. Agus has to go to a more important interview
No, this
than
is
ours.
the most important. Believe me.
So we're gonna let you go, and we'll keep going here with the podcast. But I want to thank you. Now, where can people? What's the best? Do you recommend they go to your website? Do they buy this book, The Lucky Years? How to Thrive in the Brave New World of Health, Howard Stern. If you buy just one health book this year, get this one. I like
So
that.
I've written 3 books. The first book was a book called An End of Illness.
Okay.
And so, I originally called it What is Health? Because to me, it's a key question. I didn't know what health was.
Right.
And about a week later, the publisher called me up and goes, Steve Jobs called and changed the title of your book.
Wow.
What?
You got
Steve,
overridden.
I go, what are you doing? He goes, you can't put the word health in the title. People's eyes glaze over. Once you say health, it's like chewing cardboard. People aren't going to be excited. So he came up with this bold title.
Yeah.
And it's about modeling the body and disease as a complex system. It's about my philosophy on disease.
Yeah.
The second book is called A Short Guide to a Long Life. So it's
Okay.
56 rules of to-dos
I've
and
read
not
that book.
to-dos.
That book I've read.
There you go.
That was a while ago. You put
That was a
out.
while ago. That came out about 4.5 years
Yeah.
ago.
And this one's
And then-
from a year and a half.
This is a year and a half
ago.
ago. It's called The Lucky Years.
Yeah.
How to Thrive in the Brave New World of Health. And this is about the future. This is about all the technologies that are happening and that will happen. And I get to cheat a little, right? I get to see what's going to happen because we're involved in all the studies and the technologies. And so this is, an optimist book. It really is an optimist view of the world.
Yeah. Okay. Amazon.com. Go get the book. I love books. Dr. Agus, I'm very happy that you made some time.
Oh,
and
it's my
I hope
privilege.
you'll be back here one of these days.
Listen, I live around the corner, so sure, we love
That's
it.
awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Maya's going to walk you out.
Let me get Joe.
We're staying here live. We'll be taking.
Did you guys-
I'm gonna tell you one
Should
thing.
I on your
I'm gonna be
Snapchat?
getting a lot of controversy. I might have to shoot a few questions over.
I would love it.
Tai, do a snap. You should do a snap.
Oh yeah, let me do a quick
And look at
Snapchat.
it.
This
Okay.
reaches a lot of people.
Dr. Agus, you should look into ayahuasca. It's interesting.
Robin did it, so that's why I heard all about it.
Oh yeah.
Just doing a podcast with Dr. Agus right here. Get this book. I Snapchatted it the other day. He has some very interesting opinions. No supplements. Mediterranean diet is better than ketogenic.
Yeah.
And Howard Stern is your biggest fan. And you are one of the doctors who treated Steve Jobs. We're going to have to do a whole segment just what Steve... People love Steve Jobs.
Oh, yeah.
What if you had to describe Steve Jobs in one sentence, what would it be?
A visionary. I mean, by far and away. He taught me so many things. One time we'll go over some of the lessons he taught me.
Yeah.
But every aspect of his life he looked at, and he would, give me guidance
Yeah.
of things to do. He told me, go for a walk. Walks are awesome. Part of the reason to go for a walk is the health reason. He goes, the other is if you're going for a walk on a business negotiation and you know where you're going to turn left, right, and go straight, and they don't, it gives you an advantage in the negotiations.
Authority.
The
but-
Art of War. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
That was amazing.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here, I'll look at that.
Yeah, you might want to go out that way.
Doesn't it blow your mind how massive the supplement industry is?
Here, you want to come sit here? All right, we're continuing the podcast. I'm gonna
Use it over here.
Snapchat.
Actually, right here. That one works for sure.
I actually can't wait to read this now.
He's the anti-supplement.
Yes. Oh, it's a joke. The industry's huge. My ex actually would spend about $400 to $500 a month
Yeah.
on supplements, and I'm like, hey, it's ridiculous. You're peeing most of that out.
Yeah.
You are wasting your money, and it's true. Yeah.
But Ty, aren't you lying? Did I just pay for a pre-order of a supplement?
You know, it's a there's different opinions on that. I think
I know.
supplements are cheap. In my opinion, supplements are cheap insurance. So, yeah. Let me just post this real quick, and then we'll get back to the second segment of the podcast here. Someone says, Ty addicted to cocaine? No. Should I be? Okay, we're gonna keep going with the podcast. Where does that go? Adrian?
Trying to find out.
All right, there he is. We have got Joe Soto in the house. For those of you, we're going to talk in this second segment, we're going to talk about social media. And we're going to talk about the power of Facebook ads. We're going to talk about what works and what doesn't in terms of turning your social media into a business. By the way, just a little side note. If you go to tailopez.com/secrets, I just
Wait a minute, tailopez.com/secrets/secrets?
thank you, Zach. Not double secret. Basically, what we're doing, I'm launching the first program ever on how you can turn your individual Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook into a business. It's launched, so if you want to be in the group. Now, I've done a group before. In the last 8 months, I've started a group on social media marketing agency. How you can do social media and make money for businesses by charging businesses to do their social media. This is different. This is how to turn your personal social media into a business. So we'll be talking with Joe. Joe Soto has a background. He's one of the people who helped teach and help me launch the social media marketing agency. He's got, how many clients do you have?
You know, it's changed now that we've got coaching clients and we've got a course with
Right.
students that are getting coaching clients, but we're approaching 100 clients.
He's got about 100 clients, restaurants. He helps them, get more customers, and they pay him money. It's that simple. I mean, people always want to know how to make money, and I'm like, sometimes the simplest things make you the most money. So I want to do a little. Are you?
I'll be
She's
right
wiping her face on.
back. I didn't wanna do
She
it
wanted to be
here.
off the camera. So I want to answer some questions, and then we're going to jump into this section. So someone said, Ty, you have to be really uninformed if you don't know how to make money with social media. James Keeson. Not really.
True.
Are you making $1 million a month with social media? If not, you got a lot to learn. So never be one of those people that goes, it's funny. In the modern world, people, because they read a magazine article about it or a blog post, they think they know how to do it. There's a big divide in this world between being able to talk about it and being able to do it. And we live in a world where people can talk about a lot of stuff, but they can't do it. At the end of the day, you've got to be able to do it. And so, Joe, let's talk for a second. Let's jump right kind of ahead of the timeline from even, you've been doing this. How many years you've been doing social media stuff?
You know, date me. So 2010.
2010. So the last 7 years you've been doing this.
Yep.
What's the biggest result you ever got for a client? You were telling me about a restaurant, was it in Wisconsin or something, that you added an extra $50,000 a week or sales or something just by doing Facebook ads for them?
That one was in Woodbury.
Okay.
And they weren't doing any social media advertising, or really they had very little social media going on at all. They were actually doing $77,000 a week in sales when I met the owners, and this was a large ownership group. But the main owner came to me and said, "We should be doing 90,000, plus." And I said, well, what was the most you've ever made? They said, we did a $100,000 honeymoon stage. Now, this is a business that wasn't even a year old yet.
100,000 a week?
A week.
Okay, a week.
It's a big restaurant, 450 seats.
Yeah.
And, big bars, 80-seat patio outside. It used to be an old Champs. Remember Champs?
Yeah.
Sports bars?
Remember that, Zach? Champs?
yeah.
That was in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Zach remembers all the
So now you know how
bars
big
in
it is.
America.
That's big.
Yeah.
Okay? So a business like that needs to be doing 100,000 a week.
Yeah.
And especially if they're projecting to do 5 million in sales. They weren't. They were doing 77,000. They weren't even really breaking even. They're paying $30-some thousand a month rent. And I took an inventory of their marketing spend. I said, what are you spending your money on? They said, we're spending our money on, Growler magazine because we're a craft beer restaurant. And I said, how much are you spending on that? It's $500 a month. And then we're in sports talk radio show. I said, why are you doing sports talk radio? Because we're a sports bar. And I said, well, according to Facebook, 65% of your audience are women. It sure looks like a lot of families eating your restaurant. They just didn't have a good handle on that. And so when I itemized out how they're spending their money, we just said, no more. We're going to take that away. We're going to spend $1,200 on Facebook ads. We're going to see how that works for you. Within 60 days, they went over 80,000. Actually, within about a 30-day period, they went over 80,000 a week in sales. Within about 120 days, they were over 90,000. And within 6 to 9 months, they were over 100,000 a week in sales, and they've never gone back. And they never spend more than $1,500 a month on Facebook ads.
Wow.
That's their entire advertising spend. They do a little bit on Instagram advertising.
Yeah.
They're actually part of the hospitality consulting group that I was a partner in.
Right.
When I decided not to move to Minneapolis from Iowa, I was living in Iowa, I decided to move my family to where my wife's family is, which is Northern Virginia, which is now, I'm in wine country in Northern Virginia, Western Loudoun part.
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of in the country. There's a horse ranch in my backyard.
You've got 8 kids, right?
I've got 8 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you needed a little bit of a farm.
Yeah, we needed
some acres.
We needed a bigger home. We needed a couple acres. We don't have enough acres. I don't think now that I'm there, but
You probably need at least 1 acre per kid.
Probably
How many acres do you have now?
2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might have to expand. So I want to take some questions for each person here watching live, or if you're listening later on the podcast. I just want to challenge you. How could you turn your social media, your Instagram, your YouTube, your Facebook, your Twitter, into a real business that pays you and pays your bills and pays for your lifestyle and maybe allows you to quit a job you don't like or make money doing something you love? And there's 3 ways. So I just recorded a video. This is the one at tailopez.com/secrets. It's social media secrets. The number 1 way, and the first way I recommend, is sell somebody else's product. You hear a lot about affiliate marketing, but people don't they think of affiliate marketing, they think of Google ads, they think of, advertising in the older, the 15-year-old way of doing it. But what about making an Instagram if you like gadgets, or if you like shoes, or if you like food, where you become an expert on that field? You only need about 10,000 Instagram followers to make money. If you do it right, you can make 25 cents per follower. If it's it's what I call HTN, a highly targeted niche following. So if you've got 10,000 people who follow you for your food reviews, you go around to restaurants in your town and you eat there every night, and then you blog about it, and that is once you have that following at 10,000 people, those restaurants will pay you. You could just say, look, for my time, you got to give me free food and $100. I'm going to spend 2 hours. I charge $50 an hour. You don't want to ask for a bribe because that's unethical, but you can just say, I charge everybody the same flat fee and I leave a review. And if you live in a small town, they got no choice. If you're the only act in town giving reviews, you're better than Yelp. People give up to the big corporations. They go, oh, there's already Yelp doing reviews. Well, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean you can't do a better job. If you look at shoes, if you like shoes, if you're a guy or a girl, start reviewing shoes, then put a link to Amazon for people to buy the shoes. And the cool thing about Amazon is if they click your link and buy shoes and anything else, you get paid. Okay, Dennis has a question for you, Joe. I've done Facebook ads, but how big a reach should I pay for a doctor's office? Dennis, I'm not sure if you're in my social media marketing agency program. Basically, maybe you've got some doctors that are paying you to manage their social media. And the question for Joe, who's a Facebook expert, would you recommend he just advertises within 10 miles of the doctor, 20 miles, 30 miles? What is there a kind of a rule of thumb?
Yeah, you're going to get that information from the doctor. First of all, you're going to find out. You know, when people go into these situations where they're taking on new clients, one of the biggest mistakes they make is they don't diagnose the issues that are going on with the business. So they don't take time to actually. They come in there with a package,
Right.
the preset, diagnosis.
Yep.
And they don't even or a prescription without diagnosing the problem. So find out from the doctor how far people will come in,
Right.
because that gives you an idea of how far you can go out and try. Now I'll test different things. So for example, with a restaurant, they'll say, well, we also offer catering. Well, I know for lunch, if I go beyond 3 and 4 miles, no one's coming in. They're not going to drive.
Yeah.
In Virginia, Northern Virginia, 4 miles means 20 minutes. Driving in LA, it's 2 hours. So no one's going to drive very far out from a long distance and radius. And when it comes to a hyper-competitive industry like dentist offices and things like that, for specialty services, people will drive in further first. So I'll do tests on that. So if they say, well, I also do teeth whitening, or I do sleep apnea mouth guards, and I do analysis of that, I'll say, okay, people will drive from further out for that.
Yeah.
For a dentist,
Yeah, you want
I
it
can
close.
get one that's close and it's anybody nearby. But for other specialty services, let's test some ads and go further out in the radius.
Yeah.
What are they going to spend? They're going to spend at minimum $1,000 a month on Facebook advertising for them to really move the needle.
Yesterday I do a program called Millionaire Mentor, where it's a test group. I've taken a small group of people and I'm mentoring them personally for 12 weeks. And it's been interesting. I'm in week 4. It's closed right now. You can go on the wait list on my site. If you go to tailopez.com, you'll see this Millionaire Mentor link to it. And if I open it up again, you can get in. But the interesting thing that I told people, to make $1 million in the modern world of a lot of competition, one of the things you have to do is have the mentality of an experimenter or a mad scientist. So a lot of people ask questions like, should I do this or that? And I'm like, the better question is, should I test this first or that first? Because you should be testing everything.
Yeah.
Everything. And that's really how you make a lot of money, Here, I want to do one thing.
That's also how you dial in
let's
for your
reset.
clients.
I want to reset these real quick because I want to put a different title on them. I'll be right back on Facebook. Let's just go here. So